I am not a supporter of the former's work in the same way as you are of the latter. That's how that works, right? Former and latter. I always get that mixed up.
Kind of. Former means
the first one.
First
right?
one, yeah.
Nice. Nailed it. Nailed it. Former ladder.
Yeah.
No, that time I said former ladder. Like thing you used to get up on a roof. Ladder.
Former ladder.
L-A-D-D.
Like he used to be a ladder and now isn't.
T-T-E-R.
Former ladder. He's a former ladder.
Used to be a ladder. Now he's just sitting there
just
getting
a
rusty.
step stool.
Everything's gotten taller and he's just stayed the same size, hasn't he? Former ladder.
Former ladder.
Be a sad children's book.
Yeah, that would be a sad children's book. It's like the Giving Tree, but like the depressing version. Although the Giving Tree is pretty
depressing version of the Giving Tree. Where he just kills himself.
Brutal, yeah. He hangs himself from the ladder, except he actually fails to do that as well.
Hi, you're listening to People Are Strange, a podcast starring me, Andy.
And me, JK. Please be advised, this show contains strong language and explicit descriptions of adult situations.
People Are Strange is not intended to promote the use of drugs or a life in the arts.
If you do decide to experiment, please do so from an informed and responsible place.
Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Because after all, people are strange.
What is do you have any very, very specific and sort of irrational fears? And this is hard to explain, so let me tell you mine. Mine is swimming in the ocean, in the middle of the water, like no land in sight, and all of a sudden you look underneath the water and you see something that is far bigger than any creature you've ever seen. You know, like the size of a blue whale, but maybe even bigger, like a skyscraper-sized shadow just moves.
When would you ever see that?
In the depth of the ocean. That's why it's a completely irrational fear.
So you just fear that when you're out swimming in open water that is going to happen?
Yes, the specific fear is that I'm in very deep water and I look down to like the bottom of, you know, as far as I can see down, and I see something just the size of a house, you know, this huge thing, not having any idea what it is, but just seeing this massive shape move beneath me. That's my greatest irrational fear.
Hearing you say that makes my like toes curl.
Exactly.
Like the idea of like swimming in like we used to swim in rivers and stuff too, and like sometimes I would talk myself up into like getting freaked out, like jumping into there about something just slithering around my feet or something like that.
Even if you don't feel it, you know, seeing something huge.
I know, and I can freak myself out in the ocean too, but I still go in there and I still swim. But
I can love the ocean.
Yeah.
Salty, briny crust.
I mean, like, do you want to hear about like fears or like things that like send shivers down my spine?
Just like if you have any really specific kind of irrational fears.
Well, it's not so much a fear
like
as
spiders or snakes.
It's not a fear. It just makes me feel weird.
All right, go for it.
Makes me feel really gross.
What makes you feel gross? Tell me what makes you feel gross.
Well, all right. So the number one offender is like the thought of like freshly cut fingernails, like scratching velvet.
Ooh, yeah.
Against the grain and just getting in all the sensitive bits in there.
Oh.
That's really bad. But then there's another one of like the sound of like a metal utensil like scraping against like stone cookware.
See, that doesn't bug me.
Oh, see, it's so bad. It's so
I don't
bad.
like cotton balls.
See,
though.
all right, yeah.
Same thing.
Chewing cotton balls, yeah. And I know people that don't like
the wisps of them, just like the little fibers of them, just like getting stuck to my fingers, you know, or getting like you put a cotton ball in a wound and you pull it away and there's just little fibers of cotton in the. I once.
And there's some people that have like chewing like popsicle sticks or whatever, like that gets
that freaks me out a little bit. Yeah, popsicles like wood. I don't really like dry wood. I'm totally fine with that. Dry wood kind of freaks me out. Yeah, just like wood, like rubbing. I don't know. There's something about wood rubbing against other wood. Makes my blood run cold.
That's so funny.
And centipedes.
The idea of like people chewing their like silverware, like shinging their fork off their teeth.
I've never seen anyone do that, but
stop! You'll hear it now that you know. It's the worst. Like, stop doing that. Use your lips. Like, stop shinging the knife and fork and spoon. Stop biting the spoon.
Shinging that knife.
Just, good lord, just. Oof.
You're the type of person, too, that calls people out when they're committing your pet peeves. Like, if we're with a friend of ours, you know, you're like, hey,
if I'm, like, on the floor and I'm like, please.
Could you please stop chewing your spoon? I'm a huge nerd, right? This is just like a side thought. And I've been thinking lately about just how often I want to give things fantasy names, like fantasy and sci-fi names. For example, nurses who wear scrubs, blue healers.
All right, you've lost me on this topic.
Blue healers, man, come on.
You've lost me on this topic.
Fine.
There's not going to be any repartee here. We're living in a new time where people have the access, just like they have access to learn how to grow better pot plants. Mm-hmm. They have access to learn how to build bombs and do all sorts of other sort of devious shit that they wouldn't have had access to that sort of information before. And like people,
you know, I don't know. People who want to build bombs, I think, will figure out how to build bombs. You know?
You're right. And you know, people will watch Breaking Bad and like learn about ricin and then make that in their dorm rooms, which happened. I understand you got to like have context, but like media has to take a little, responsibility for what they show. Not saying that you can't like show stuff like that because people need to understand and react responsibly, but
I think I don't know. Is the problem though that the media just shows these fucked up things because they have this like evil agenda, where they want to keep us down, or is it just that the American people react to just like dumb? People watch the Kardashians.
Well,
like, why does that happen?
Is
it because we were like, which came first, the Jersey Shore or us being dumb? Like, I mean, obviously in that case, it's us being dumb. But like, what was it originally? Did media influence this dumb culture, or has it always been there?
I mean, it's both. Why do people look at media? Because they want an escape. They want to take a break from what they're doing, and they want to see something else. But like, you look at like Discovery Channel, and you look at Discovery Channel, and like you're Nat Geo, and you used to be able to find programming that was like educational. PBS, public television, is like the best thing we have in the world because it actually provides like real programming that is like thought-provoking and educational, and like
especially
will
when
teach
they're
you new
showing
things.
stuff like that new Cosmos on it.
Yes, like you could like watch things and like learn things. You could watch programs and like learn things about animals or about places that you wouldn't be able to like see or experience. But now it's all about getting ratings and like showing naked people have like surviving in the wild, or like some guy walking over a high wire.
That is literally a show, Naked in the Wild.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And
you
it's
know
the
what?
same,
I think we're gonna see soon.
But wait, because it's the same thing with the news. Is that they want the ratings, and they know that if they like come on with some like. It's always bad news. It's like you can't just be the news. It's got to be the fucking bad news. It's got to be the murders and the car wrecks and the disease and everything wrong with the world. And like they don't come on with like the good new scientific development or the person doing the good in the community. And like they don't. I don't know why that doesn't sell as well. But like they always hype up every storm, every snowstorm. It's got to be the biggest blizzard to come, and then it ends up being an inch, or they've got to. Because they get ratings and murder, sells. People watch these CSI shows and people getting cut up and gutted on a fucking table like it's nothing, and then they go to sleep and like dream, and like that's how these images floating through their heads.
And meanwhile, a lot of people are living in the city where 2 streets, away from them, someone is probably getting shot while they watch that show.
Right outside there, fucking.
Chances are, And that's just the way it goes. And it seems like people generally either try to escape the world or they try to find like an answer for it. And they usually, turn to religion, which, unless you're going for something like Buddhism or, I don't know, something really laid back, usually doesn't end up making you a more open-minded person. Which I think is the key, I think the key is to like never decide that that you have the definitive answer for anything. You know, like always be open to the possibility that there's more to learn about something. There are bad drugs out there. You know, PCP, meth. Those are pretty dangerous drugs, and I am of the kind of, I sort of believe that you can do anything once, you know, and like you'll be okay, which is usually fairly true. You know, you can do shit like crack once and overdose and die, or dope and overdose and die. But if you're smart about shit, you know, you can try anything and be okay. I definitely wouldn't recommend it with stronger drugs.
There's just
but hallucinogens are in a class of their own, and they're almost not drugs as much as they are like gifts from the divine, you know.
Well, when you're talking about something that grows naturally in the earth, these mushrooms, these cacti,
mushrooms, and even acid
plants.
comes from ergo, which is a mold that grows on plants,
and even marijuana to a certain. These are things that grew from the earth. Like, I mean, you could talk to the more conservative opposition and argue whatever kind of tactics you want to do, but regardless, it's not about an argument. It's just a simple fact that these things have been around for thousands of years, and they are.
LSD has. It's only been around for.
Well, sure, but LSA and other sort of.
Yeah.
You know, the mushrooms.
Ayahuasca. It's the big one.
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca's fascinating.
The peyote, all that stuff. But there's other ways of attaining this kind of feeling as well.
Sure.
There's sweat lodges, the Native American kind of a nipe sweat lodge. I think I'm saying that right. I'm probably messing it up, but like
sensory deprivation tanks.
Sure, but even like we were talking about
even
theatrical
really
sort
good
of
sex.
Experiences. Good.
I had a friend who claimed he would have visuals after really good sex.
All right, but I mean,
very smart.
This kind of feeling when you're watching an improv show where people are up there and they're passing something back and forth.
We're doing an improv show,
and they're
feeling
clicking
that connection,
and they're connecting. Yeah. That is like a mushroom trip.
Yeah,
where you're,
exactly
where you're all
the same
connecting
feeling.
on a kind of another level, and you just are feeling the audience. You're feeling the energy of each other. You're feeling the rising tides of the show.
It's like just being like a tiny bit telepathic.
It is a little bit where you're fully aware. You're heightened. Awesome. You're paying attention to yourself, to the people around you.
Unless you take
close
too much.
To you. Well, sure, but I mean, I'm talking about
the good experience.
Improv show.
That's right, sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
See, and we were communicating.
Wait, were you really?
I really was.
Oh my god,
I really was. And we were.
It is like, exactly the same.
It's the same.
Yeah. It's so incredible. Hallucinogens are in a class of their own.
When you're doing these things, it's not like you're just sitting in a blank box. I mean, maybe you are, but a lot of the times you're looking at cool things. You're playing with paints. You're experimenting with color. You're listening to music. All of these things are ways to take in the magic of the world. I mean, being able to create a song, being able to create a picture, being able to make something and be able to look at it. Or just have other people be able to experience it, or you be a part of it. These are the things that are worth living.
Agreed. Absolutely. You know what I think? I think more. This is a delicate thing, but I think young adults need to take hallucinogens.
No, I disagree with that because I feel like when your brain is still developing.
No. I'm talking about like 20 years old, like in that range.
Well. The first time I did it,
maybe 21.
I was perhaps a little younger than that.
Yeah, sure. I was 18.
But we did it responsibly.
Yeah.
We didn't do it.
You certainly shouldn't take it while you're a minor. You know,
and you shouldn't do it like too many times in a row.
Honestly, the longer you can wait before taking drugs, the better. But it's not a bad thing when you do. But the younger you are, the more you risk. You know.
Well, and you have to look at the reasons why you're doing
stepping over that line. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of people who are doing, you know, I mean, there's a lot of bad drugs out there, and there are a lot of people who are using drugs for really bad reasons, and it's really unfortunate because almost no one uses hallucinogens for bad reasons. Well, you never hear about LSD addicts. You see some of those hippies that have gone a little too far, but you know, there were
reports about
few and far between
people who were suffering from addiction, who were alcoholics, who were, heroin addicts or whatever. They didn't like taking acid. They didn't like taking mushrooms. They didn't like having these trips because it forced them to look at themselves and the lives that they were living and the choices that they were making, and they knew it wasn't good for themselves, but they were kind of trying to struggle to hold on to this idea, this facade, but this other drug was able to kind of strip away all that bullshit, strip away all that ego, and allow them to look at that. And, coming back to reality, they didn't like that because it forced them to look at their life differently. They were a different person at that point. But
if you're not comfortable with what's going on in your own head, it's.
But that can be a good thing. That can be a fantastic,
I think it's always a good thing. I think even bad trips are good.
When you're struggling, when you're having conflict, sometimes it's the best thing you can do is allow yourself to step back, look at it objectively, play out a scenario, imagine what would happen, or look back at something that would happen and look at how maybe you could have done it better, how maybe they could have done it better, how maybe, whatever. We're all humans. We're going to mess up. We're not perfect. And maybe the best thing to do is just kind of move on and try to be better, or whatever it is,
It's actually, this is, how do I describe this? This is a situation I'm going to pose to you, alright? I want you to imagine a hypothetical situation. So, let's say that you go out to the bar one night in Baltimore or whatever, and you meet this fucking gorgeous French girl, right? It's like, oh man, she's got like porcelain skin.
This is the hypothetical that happened to you last...
No. I'm saving that story for much later in the evening. This is just a hypothetical situation. So you meet this fucking gorgeous French girl. She's like, oh, she's your perfect woman, dude. She's wearing these like...
She's French?
Yeah, she's
French.
Is
she anti-Semitic like the rest of those French motherfuckers?
Whoa.
Do you know how big anti-Semitism is in France right now?
Okay, alright. You meet this gorgeous German girl. Okay?
Oh, that's better.
Oh god. Alright, Scandinavian, Icelandic.
I got no qualms.
Pick one. Alright, so you meet this gorgeous Scandinavian girl. And she's like, oh yes, my name is, Ivana, and she says her last name and you don't really hear it. Oh. And she writes it down for you. And it's this Icelandic last name, or this Scandinavian last name. I don't know what she is. And it's like Stonschwatz. And you're like, alright. God, that's a hot last name, Stonschwatz. And she's like, yes, that is it. So you date this girl for months, and you're always calling her Ivana Stonschwatz, and everything's great. And then you fall madly in love with her, and you guys like get engaged. And she's like, but before the marriage, I want to take you to meet my family, but you must know you are pronouncing my last name wrong. And you're like, oh. What, really? All this time? Why didn't you correct me? And she just was like, oh, it was cute, I just thought it was cute. And you're like, well, how do you pronounce your last name? And she says, Stankpuss. Would you marry Ivana Stankpuss?
Would she be changing her name?
No, okay, let's add on a layer. And she continues to say, yes, the Stankpusses are a very famous Scandinavian family, and you must change your last name. This is why I've waited so long to tell you. You must become J.K. Stankpuss. Would you become J.K. Stankpuss for this girl? Just think about it, like, you wouldn't, how would you approach her about the situation when you say, listen, there's a word in English for vagina, and there's another word which means stinky, and your last name is basically a combination of both of those. Would you try to explain it to her, or would you just be like, well, I don't know, and what if her
last name's going to be her last name one way or the other, so what if you were to even tell her that, like, oh, well, your name kind of means, like,
stinky
in English, stinky vagina, and she's like, oh, yes, no, in Scandinavian, Stankpuss means
yes, it means
the vaginas of the stink.
Yes, see, we were a fishmongering family.
So would you take the last name?
Did they have like a lot of money in Scandinavia?
No, they're very poor.
Very poor, but very proud.
Very poor, but very proud. Yes.
And she was beautiful. Did she have a lot of family over in Scandinavia, or is it just like her mom and dad?
No, it's a big and very
lots
noble
of brothers
family.
and stuff.
Yeah, they're gonna hurt you. Either way, even if you take the last name, they're gonna hurt you. They're big.
And she's just the best, most beautiful woman.
She's a 10. She's a 10. She's the only 10. No, I'm not gonna say that.
Oh man, it'd be tough.
It would be tough.
It would be very, very.
But you
tough.
would do it. You would embrace the name.
I don't know.
You're not sure? I would do it.
Because what am I gonna?
I would just be like, I'm Stankpuss now, and my buddies would be like, what the fuck? And I'd be like, check out my hot ass wife, you know? That'd be cool. And here's the other thing. I'm not trying to be shallow here. She has a great personality. She is funny as fuck. She's a Scandinavian comedic genius. She's a Scandinavian stand-up
leaving me
comic.
down the road, and I've gone in to make my name as J.K. Stankpuss, and then she divorces me and takes her last name with her. And so Anna Stankpuss goes off and rides the, Ivana Stankpuss.
Gotten your own wife's name.
Ivana Anna Stankpuss. And she then goes off and does great things with the last name that I've built back to prosperity. And then I go back to my last name, which I've done nothing for. And then it's fucking square one.
It's a good point.
These are things I have
You would
to
have to
consider
be
with
the artist formerly known as Stankpuss.
So I would still have that odor following me around years and years
for the rest of your life.
Even if I couldn't, even if I got rid of the lady. I don't know.
So here's an interesting question. You know, there's that whole thing with like pheromones, where you're attracted to certain smells and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
So what are your favorite smells?
My favorite smells?
Yeah, your favorite smells.
This is so funny that you asked me this question now when I was just having a conversation with someone else about what their favorite smell was. So
yeah?
It's very interesting.
What's your favorite smell?
On
the tip of your mind.
I said my favorite smell was probably like the smell of like burning wood, like wood smoke.
Oh yeah.
Like when I'm driving down the road and like I'll catch like a hit of wood smoke out my window. It'll just make me like, no matter what season
get a hit of that wood smoke.
It like makes me immediately think of like fall and like hanging out with friends and like sweaters and leaves being pretty and crunchy and just like beautiful times and like good food and warmth and like. And then, like, if I am actually at, like, a fire, like, I love, like, the next day, like, having that smoke smell in my hair and in my clothes and stuff and on my pillow.
When we were young, we used to drive to the hookah bar. And we'd go for, like, a 45-minute drive to the hookah bar that would serve under 18 kids when we were, like, 16.
Yeah, I'm supposed to, yeah.
I'm not going to say the name of it. I'm not even going to say where we were driving. Sure, I won't even say the town. But there was this really cool...
And it had great naan.
Great naan, yeah.
And they rationed my sodas.
Yeah, they had really cheap upholstery that was stolen from Red Lobster. Yeah. And they would play Middle Eastern Bollywood music videos that were really bizarre.
It was fit for a king, that cafe.
Yeah, and I always remember the next day, back then going to the hookah bar was like sort of a taboo thing before we started smoking weed and doing LSD.
Well, it was like a way for us to cut loose before we could go to bars and before we could do other things. And we didn't really smoke a lot of weed at that time.
No, I don't think we really smoked any weed.
Or do really a whole lot of, we weren't.
We get buzzes from the
before we
hookah.
were big drinkers.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. It was right around the time we started drinking, and I remember getting in the shower the day after, and the hookah smoke coming out of my hair, and just smelling that in the shower.
Such thick smoke.
Smells.
Shisha.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting thing when you were talking about the wood smoke earlier. Every time it gets, especially in the summer, when we have those cool summer nights out here on the East Coast, you start to smell that wood smoke smell. I guess people just start burning shit when it gets kind of cool. When it like drops down to like 65 degrees, people just start, let's just burn stuff at 65 degrees. It's got to burn some shit. Clear and brush, yeah. And so everything
maybe isn't good.
Well, probably bad, but the world just has that smoky smell when it gets cold out around here. Even driving down the highway, you can smell it. Ugh, love it. Yeah.
What about you, man? What's your favorite?
My favorite smells.
Just one. I just gave one.
See, that wood smoke smell is definitely, in the top.
Right,
but
well, we just covered
certain perfumes, I think there's specifically one called like Princess or Pink or something like that. And like 2 out of 3 of my closest ex-girlfriends have worn that scent.
Oh yeah.
And so
do you know what the flower is that actually makes up that smell, or what that actual?
I have no idea.
Because I like smelled like one of the actual flowers that goes into like making like a lot of those perfumes and. Pretty.
I want to
heavenly.
find out. And grow those flowers because I'm addicted to that scent. Every time I'll occasionally run into a girl that is using that perfume.
And just follow her into whatever store she's going into.
I'm immediately attracted to her regardless of you know who she is. Just because that smell triggers. It's crazy how smell triggers such. I think that is the sense which triggers like emotional memory stronger than anything else.
There's definitely research that's gone to. Attest to that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Pheromones.
Well, pheromones is different than like smells. Like there's no like. I mean,
aren't they connected?
Well, yeah, but pheromones I think are like emitted by things. Like
I know that's why cats rub their faces on you.
Yeah,
pheromones
because they have in their like cheeks or whatever. But like so like I don't necessarily know of any like living thing that emits the smell of like wood smoke. Aside from like burning wood,
or tiny animals that have
but
been
like
lit
that's
on fire.
That's the same thing with like perfumes, like or like what you were talking. Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a natural smell.
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's like from some flower and.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Is, do you ever, every once in a while, when it's usually like when I end up making out with a chick for the first time, you pick up on the body scent of that person, and sometimes like. It's not a sweat thing or like a good or bad thing. It's just everybody has their smell. And some people's smells are you're much more attuned to than other people's. Like some girls you get close to her and you're like, oh, she has the smell. And you usually don't smell it until you're less than a millimeter away from their face. You got to be real close, Maybe you could be snuggling or something. You don't have to be sucking face, but...
absolutely. And I have one memory specifically there that like where we were, and it was like from her shampoo or whatever. But like we were hanging out and like watching a movie. But then, like, and she went home, and then I just remember, like, my sleeve of my shirt, like, smelled, like, so strongly of her.
Shirt,
and I was just like, oh my god, yes, like, I'm not washing this.
I had a t-shirt when I was 18 years old. I hooked up with this girl that I had been in love with for months, if not years. And, I finally ended up, getting in there. And,
right, you sounded so romantic, and then you go in with something so unceremonious.
So we finally ended up. I don't even. Well, anyway. So we finally ended up. Some things happened, and my t-shirt smelled like her perfume for like days afterwards, and I just remember standing by the washing machine just like, and she had left. That's the thing, she had gone back to her home state. She had gone back to the West Coast, and I just knew that I wasn't going to see her again for a while, so the one concrete piece I had of her was that t-shirt that smelled like her. I didn't want to wash it. I did. It didn't take me that long. I kept it unwashed for like a week, and I just had it hanging next to my bed, and every so often, just relive those memories.
When I went to pick up my puppy, Knox, they told us that like it's a good idea to take like a towel and rub it on his like the other puppies in his like litter, and then bring that back when you put him in his kennel or crate or whatever. Like you put that in there with him, so he's got some familiar smells in there.
Yeah, there you go, smells.
Thank you for joining us for People Are Strange.
If you enjoyed the show, please like us on Facebook.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Email us, andyandjk@gmail.com.
And most importantly, tell your friends.
I'm Andy.
And I'm JK.
Be sure to check back with us next week for another exciting new episode of People Are Strange.